are off. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industry that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Emily and Stephanie Lee. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
My absolute pleasure. I've said this on numerous podcasts, so the listeners have heard me say this, and I'll let you guys know before we turn the mic on that I, for some reason, can't look anyone in the eye during that process. So I appreciate you guys giving me that, kind of giving me my space to get through that. I want to just jump right into this and give context to, I guess, the listeners, but also myself. Why cookies? I have to know. I've been dying to know, and I feel like it may be a strange question to kick it off with, but why are we here discussing this? Why is this your reality? Why are two talented people, sisters, jiving and creating this business? How did this come to be?
That was actually, it was first started with me. When I was in post-secondary school, I needed a snack that my body could handle while I was at school. And my whole life I've had stomach issues, and I thought it was gluten. And that happened about 7 years ago. And at that time, gluten-free was kind of like a new thing, and a lot of products tasted horrible. And I have always been someone who cared so much about taste. But I mean, when I was in high school, that's the thing, is like when I was a kid, food was such a big deal for me. And even my parents had a grocery store, so we had so much food, and I loved to eat, but I also had a body image issue, I guess you could say. Like, I would always look at myself in the mirror and wish I would look different, but I loved food so much. So it was an ongoing struggle growing up. And I love food so much that I wanted to go to culinary school, and I knew that at age 8. And I would just watch cooking shows all day. And so that was such a huge love for me. But also I wanted the body that was on the Shape magazine at the time and the Cosmopolitan. So it was always contradicting, like, two things that I wanted so badly. And I learned through that how to eat healthier, cook for myself, but I also loved eating for taste. And when I went to UBC to become a teacher, the intent was to become a foods teacher, because I went to culinary school when I was 21, and that wasn't something that I wanted to do long term, because I knew it wasn't conducive to like family life. And I just knew in my heart that that was something I wasn't wanting to do. I kind of let go of the ego and be like, you know what, I know that I wasn't made for this. So what can I do that involves food? And it just made sense for me. Like, I was working at Cactus Club. I worked at the Keg. I've only worked in restaurants, and my identity was so centered around food that I almost felt lost, because since you're 8 years old, you told yourself you're going to be in this industry, and then you realize that that's not for you. And so it's like all these things happening: eating disorder, love for food. What am I going to do next? And somehow, like, the universe kind of guided me to this cookie because of my food sensitivities. Okay, well, if you care about taste so much, why don't you create something that tastes good, that you can eat? And somehow this, like, gluten-free thought came in my mind, like, maybe that's what I'm allergic to. And so I started testing, and then I'd make these cookies, and everyone would come over and they would say, oh my gosh, these are so good. And these are like people who care about what they put in their bodies, like taste-wise. They're guys. Like, a lot of them, I'm not saying like tons of guys came through, but like girlfriends.
Let's just correct that.
But these are like guys who just wanted to eat like a good cookie. You could have put butter, tons of sugar in it, and they just would want it.
Right.
But they were eating cookies that were healthy, that I made for me. And I, because of my eating disorder, I would eat really gross food just so that I could be skinny. So if I liked the taste, I knew what was in it was good, and I didn't have to feel bad for eating it. And then these guys who, or girls, liked it as well. I'm like, hey, this is crazy. Like, did I create something that people really like to eat, but were actually good for us to put in our bodies. And that was just a thought. But at that time, I was also undergoing a lot of insecurities. You know, it's just been a struggle for me my whole life, and always caring what people thought. That starting a business and thinking that you could create a business with a cookie and make money and live off of that is just a crazy idea. And I didn't have the confidence at the time. And so Emily's 8 years younger than I am. And I believe in divine timing. So I had this idea for years. I wanted to do it, but I was becoming a teacher. I invested so much money and time to becoming a teacher. I'm like, what am I thinking? Right. And my dad, being like a Chinese dad, was like, you need an education. You got to find one job and just stick with it, Stephanie. So I'm like, okay, fine. And the process was just very daunting for me to do the cookie thing, entrepreneur thing, because I never thought I was an entrepreneur or could be, you know. And so Emily, I kind of did my thing, went to school, became a teacher, like was in a relationship. I was a stepmom. So I kind of had cultivated an identity of who I was. And then Emily was downtown because I'd moved to North Van, and she was doing her thing in fitness. And I would watch her and see what she was doing and admire her for just chasing after her dreams while I wasn't. And she was going through school, doing her thing, and then somehow, you know, things kind of aligned where we came together, and my relationship ended, and I was broken, and she was finding herself too. And it was just the perfect timing for us to go, hey, let's do this. Let's do your cookie, because she's the best.
That's amazing.
And but then she's like, let's change the cookie a little. And it was a piece of her in it.
Right.
So I'll let Emily kind of continue with that. And like,
but sorry to interrupt. Before we do, I got to plug this guy in. I'm going to lose all this content, so I don't want to lose that. So just hang on 2 seconds, guys. We'll be right back. I apologize. Okay, we are... Sorry, I got to do that. We are back. We do have plug-in power now, so we're not going to lose any of that content. Before we broke to get the technical stuff dealt with, Stephanie was passing the literal mic to Emily to kind of fill us in to... You wanted to, I mean, you didn't consciously want to, but you were adding your own spin on what this business and what this cookie was going to be. So please interject and fill us in on how this sister duo became to be with this product and with this business.
Yeah. So Steph and we're actually perfect balances of one another. So while I'm more of the business side of things, and it's funny because in my journey of discovering who I am, I always thought I'd be in business school. And like Stephanie didn't think she wanted to do an entrepreneurial path.
Venture, yeah.
I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. I always knew I wanted to build something. I just had no idea what it was. And I ended up stumbling upon becoming a spin instructor while I was in school trying to get into solder at UBC. And then I finally got into UBC and solder, but I also got accepted into kinesiology. So I ended up doing this, you know, Masters of Management duo with kinesiology. I thought, okay, I'm going to get my business degree at the same time as getting my kinesiology degree, and I'm going to go open up a gym or open up a studio or do something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then when I was in the Masters of Management, I thought, I'm not learning anything here. I'm going to be spending a fortune on this. It just didn't feel like it aligned with me. So I made the decision to drop the business aspect of my schooling, which I had put so much effort and time and like heart and soul into it. I remember I'd take 1 course or 2 courses a semester just to get my GPA up so I could get into the best business school that I thought I could get into. And then I said no to it. And at the time I was freaking out. I didn't know what I was doing. So I graduate from kinesiology and I immediately go to Bali, and I skip my convocation so I could go there and get my 200 hours of yoga training. I get home and Steph is like, okay, I just like ended this relationship. I'm ready to do something that's for myself. I'm scared and I'm fearful, but I want to do it, and I wanted to be on this journey with her. So I said, okay, I'll only do it with you if you get rid of the bad sugar, you get rid of the eggs and make it vegan, and you add protein, because that's like, there is a need from it. And like, you know, you see people go to the gym and they don't eat because they're in a rush, or they eat crap. And like crap they think is good for them. So someone will eat a bar that's 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, but it's horrible sugar.
Yeah.
And after you eat it, you have like this rock in your stomach, and it's
Yeah.
like, why do you think that is? It's not good for you, right? And I've been eating Stephanie's cookies for as long as she's been making them. I remember when she was in her old apartment, I was still in Langley, like still living at home, not in Vancouver, not knowing what I was going to do. And I would eat those cookies and just be like, wow, this is incredible. This is gluten-free. So I knew it was something, and I knew that it was something that she could make money off of and could make a living off of, but I never actually thought that I was a part of that journey. So when she came to me, I was like, this isn't mine though. Like,
Right.
this is your thing. Like, this is something that's your passion or like your creation. And I didn't know how I could contribute. So I did the business side of things, and I was like, go create this cookie because I trust that you can. And she's like, I don't know how to get rid of the eggs. I don't know how to add the protein. What protein am I going to use?
Right.
It's an
Right?
emotional attachment
Yeah.
to the,
Oh, for
to
sure.
the product that you create.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, like, why? I can't change it. But
It's like changing the hair color of your kids. Like, you can't do that. Do you
Good
know what I mean?
analogy.
Yeah.
we've learned how to adapt and to change. If that was something that I struggled with the cooking thing. And that's another thing too, is like, I think it's like a cook's mindset or a chef's mindset.
Yeah.
You know, when someone needs you have to change it for them.
Like a modification or something, yeah.
Exactly. Chefs get really offended when they get, I've seen it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And I've learned to just say, hey, you know what? We got to adapt, and we got to see what people need. And that's the driving force for our product, is when we can give it to someone who can't have gluten, can't have nuts, or whatever that restriction is, and we hear that they can't have other products, but they can have ours. It really, it solidifies why we do it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So it's an emotional product. Like, for us, like it's not just a cookie.
Yeah.
at the end of
When
the
does
day.
when does that stop for you though, and when does it become? And the reason I'm asking this is because currently, right now, I'm working with a bakery, and I actually had to speak with the baker, the woman that owns the business, and just ask her, like, what of these items are you emotionally attached to, and let's figure those ones out, and then let's see which ones of those are performing or they're not. Because at the end of the day, you are trying to run a business, you're trying to employ people, create lifestyles, all those things. So at the end of the day, you have to make a business decision. So for you both, I'm guessing for you, Stephanie, more so because this is something you literally created from the ground up, the actual recipe.
Right.
Have you been able to digest, for lack of a better term, that change a little bit better, or are you happy with where it's at now and you don't need to change it, and this is it, so you're going to be that chef where you don't do modifications, and this is kind of the hill you're going to die on? Or if something new comes up, are you willing to change again because you've already exercised those emotions and you understand it's a business and we need to change? If the industry is changing, we will change with it. So where do you stand with that?
Well, Emily's being that person who's like, okay, come on. You know,
Like she's your sounding board or your challenger? Or?
She's like the business side of things, so she understands. But Emily also understands we need a product that can make us money, but also can provide for our consumers. So it's not just about making money.
Right.
It has to be a win-win for everyone.
Totally. I love that.
And that's why when we think about it, we have to consider both sides, because we do have to pay our bills, right? Otherwise, we're going to go under, and there's no product out there.
Yeah, you're not helping anybody when you do that.
Exactly.
I always say that if, like, we get rid of something, like, for example, we had chocolate chunks on our cookies, and it was like the 5 chunks that were laid in the perfect position.
Really? Yeah.
But I was thinking, if we want to go global with this, and we want someone in Europe to be able to have this
You
with
can't
the
scale it,
allergies,
yeah.
I'm like, that person in Europe will never be able to get our cookie if we keep these chunks. But if we switch it to chips and it's easier to bake, then everybody can enjoy this cookie, and the people that actually need it are going to get it. So it's like a business aspect of let's scale it, but then there's that real driving force of like, what's our mission? Our mission is to like feed the world with this cookie that can sustain you, gives you protein, and can cater to the allergies, right?
Right.
So.
For me, what I'm hearing, and I don't feel like either one of you have this issue, but for lack of a better term, it's like you have to park your ego a bit with this process and just look at, okay, what's better for the people and for the business? Because as much as I loved the egg and as much as I loved the original recipe, that there's no business there that's
Right.
conducive for us doing what we really want to do. And what we really want to do is feed the world healthy food that's going to help them thrive. I'm just,
Totally.
making up your modus operandi, but it sounds to me like that's what's driving you more than anything else. So you're more willing now to adapt if need be.
Yes, I think that's a huge part of the learning curve in the business for me, because I'm all emotion, and Em's a little bit, she's more logical. And I would actually have to say that was one of the best things that I was able to overcome, is being attached to something. I think that's what actually drives some businesses to the ground, is that they're not willing to change. And now I welcome it, and I'm like, okay, if we can make this better, if we can make this something that the consumer wants, I'm going to do it. I mean, this cookie from the original one to now, it's probably changed like, I don't even know how many times, but every time I'm like, oh, now it's even better.
Yeah.
And there's no way I would have thought that at the beginning.
That's so cool. And it's so cool that I can still see you get excited about it as well, which is rare for a lot of people if they've been doing it for years and years. It's like a chef working in the same kitchen, cooking the same menu. He or she can get really burnt out, like literally and physically, because it's just so repetitive. Whereas it seems like when you're describing this process for yourself, it still is something that's exciting for you.
Oh, it's challenging.
Yeah.
Because when it doesn't work out, you're just like, oh, but then you have to stop to think about it. And Emily's a very go, 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 go. Whereas I'm like, okay, I have to contemplate, assess it. And I do that slowly. And then I go, okay, what can we do? And then I make a change, and then it doesn't work. And then I have to sit with it. And I'm like, oh, am I being like, is this unproductive and I'm not being efficient? But that's, I think, a part of being proud of your product. Like, you have to, whatever we put out there, I want to know that I'm giving someone something that I'm proud to give to them. Not that I just want them to buy the product and see it later. It's something that I'm like, okay, what are we putting out into the world? Because we're putting our energy out into the world through our cookie. And I want that to be a positive thing. Of course, we're not going to make everyone happy, because there's a lot of people who have opinions about it. And so that also is another thing, is like, okay, we're doing our best, and that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I think it was Gandhi that said 100% effort is 100% victory. Like you literally can't do more than that. So whether it's sport or business or relationships, if you're giving 100% to it, that is winning. Like that's just which is always it's always nice to, if you can kind of touch base with that in your business, because it's lonely sometimes as entrepreneurs. Like if you're giving your all, it's like, what else do you have to give? There's nothing else. And I think there's so much of this rhetoric right now on social media and just in the world that we live in of, people celebrating like 100-hour work weeks and not sleeping and like on the grind, #hustle. You know what I mean? It's just like, but that's not sustainable. That's not real. And that's not, no one wants to actually do that. There needs to be some sort of balance, and you can't give more than you have to give. It's just everyone has their limits. You were mentioning about more emotional and more kind of practical, but then you were saying how sometimes like it takes you a little bit longer to go through a process where you look at different angles. So who is the pragmatic one, like linear, and who's the one who's looking at different angles and kind of dreaming? So sorry, better way to put it, if you guys are one body, who has their feet on the ground touching reality, and who has their heads in the clouds?
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
My head's all over the place.
Yeah.
Emily's the one always like pulling me down. Like, okay, you gotta be realistic. At
the same time, like we need that aspect of dreaming and like thinking big. And I think I'm struggling with it. Not struggling, but I'm realizing it, where I have those moments of time where I'm just dreaming and nonstop dreaming, and I think, oh, I'm a huge manifester, right? So I'm like, if I put it on my wall, it's going to happen one day. At the same time, you can't just put it on your wall.
There's work that has
stare
to
at
be
it,
done. Yeah.
and then all of a sudden expect it to be, at your doorstep. Like, there's so much work that goes into it, and it's like, yes, what is at the top? What is at the top of your mountain? But at the same time, what steps are going to take to get there? And at the same time, you're going to have those down days. You're going to be low vibes. You're going to have so much fear, especially as entrepreneurs. Like anyone who's listening and like thinking of doing a business, like you're scared, but that's normal. Like that's a good thing. And I think the more fear that comes into you and the more challenges that come towards you, you're going in the right direction.
Totally.
Right? And then there's those small moments where you have the victory, or that's really, it's the effort that is the victory. And I love that you said that, because that journey of facing your fear, in turn, on the other side of the fear is like love for yourself, and love for your product, love for your business, love for the people around you, love for the people that will be affected by you facing your fear. And that's like the goal. That's the goal in life, I think.
Oh, totally.
So like that dreaming aspect, I'm always, and Stephanie's really inspiring me to do that too. Like, since you've been in my life, I've been more of a dreamer. Before I was like, okay, here's my plan.
It's black and white.
I was so black and white. Now I'm more like, okay, like one day we're going to do this. One day this is going to happen. Right now, this is what we're working on, and this is what I need to like focus on and like bring Stephanie's attention to, so that we can end up in that dreamy space that we want to be in. Because truth is, you can make anything a reality. Yeah. But it takes like that little bit of the practicality every day. I think it's like 20% dreaming, 80% practical hard work. Yeah. Right?
No, I agree. And it's interesting that you both, I mean, you guys share blood, you're sisters, but you're so different that way naturally. And that's how I am with my wife, my partner. We're that way as well. Like, she's so practical. Like, it almost frustrates her at how whimsical I can be with ideas of dreams that I have. But like you were saying, Emily will kind of pull you down, but I'm sure as she's pulling you down, you're also pulling her up. So it's you end up in the middle. So how cool is it that somehow, some way, you were just both gifted this way of looking at business and relationships and life? Like, what a gift, right? And then not only as your sister, but also your business partner now. So conducive to, again, finding that balance, which we all want to try and find in our lives.
It's funny because Emily and I will go through life, and when she's vibing really high, I'll be low, and then I look to her for inspiration. And then when I'm high, she's low, and we just kind of work through our struggles together, and we have each other as our strength. And I just wanted to add to what we were saying earlier. I actually saw something on Instagram, this video of this guy who's talking about the law of attraction. And I think, this kind of relates to our business and our cookie, is that he's like, people think that, the law of attraction is like number one, but he actually said the first thing that comes second to the first thing, which is the law of vibration. And how we vibrate and our frequency is what helps to manifest the things that we dream of and that we want in our lives. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to relate it to myself. And I think, okay, well, I actually said it to, I said it to my friend that, when I'm not good, the business isn't good. The cookie's not good. So where's the work that has to be done? The work has to be done on me first before the you
can expect anything else to be thriving.
So people can go out there and try to build a business, but if you're not good inside and your heart's not good, and you're that is a huge reflection. That is a reflection of like your business and your product. So my work for me has always been about my vibration, and it made sense to me. I'm like, that is so true, and I'm so glad he put that in perspective for me, that my vibration, that's my work. So then everything else can be good. And like the self-love is my Instagram page. That's the theme of it. And it just kind of came to be that way. But it made sense to me the other week or 2 weeks ago when I was like, you know what? If I'm not good, the business is not good. And it always happens that way. And it's in the last year, that's what has happened. So the work I'm always doing on myself. And, so like when I look at our cookie, I think, wow, it's a representation of us fully. And I said, we put out our energy through the cookie. That really is like our struggle, the love that we have for this product. And so when I know it sounds kind of crazy, but when we put our product out there, we're saying like, here's our product. We put love into this, and we hope it gives you the love as well. So I think that's a huge thing for us.
Oh, I think you find that in any successful food-based business. I mean, you hear it all the time in traditional brick and mortar restaurants. Like if a chef is angry, if he or she is angry, you can taste it in the food.
Absolutely.
And if there's a chef that's totally in love, it's almost like when my grandmother, who's still alive, love you, grandma, she watches, hey, grandma, when she makes, so I have a Ukrainian background, when she makes pierogies and I make pierogies, the exact same recipe, it's just different. She just puts something different into it. And that's the cool thing about, you're talking about vibration and attraction. We could do a whole other podcast on that because I believe wholeheartedly in that. And we are all connected in somehow, some way. So the energy you bring to your business will then, your business will look and feel like you look and feel. So being aware of that as an owner is so important. I think you're seeing more, again, with social media being so prevalent right now, and CEOs of businesses and multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar businesses and people, what are they saying they're doing every single day? They're exercising, they're meditating, they're fueling their body with good food. These are messages that a lot of people need to be hearing and taking note of, because they are proof that that's how you need. If that's your goal, you want to take over the world and you want to be a billionaire, guess what? You better find time to meditate. You better find time to eat your vegetables, drink lots of water, and exercise once a day. So it's so cool that you saw that message and it resonated with you, and makes you more aware of kind of what you bring is what you create. How did the name come to be?
You know what? It's funny. Conscious Cookie Co. So Stephanie, we used to do, like, we still do, but we used to use like angel and tarot cards a lot.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. You guys
So-
are like really into it.
Yeah, very spiritual. And
I love it.
think, how long ago was it? Maybe a year and a half ago, we got a lot more into it. And it's kind of where we found ourselves and like started that self-love journey even further. And it forced us to go into like those deeper, darker places, especially me going to Bali. That's where it really came to be. But when I got home from Bali and when Stephanie, her relationship ended, we were like tarot carding, angel carding every single day, and just trying to find like our path through that way. And Steph bought the
Conscious
deck.
Spirit deck, and for some reason I was so drawn to some of the images on that specific deck online. I'm like, I need that deck, and I came to that deck because I was trying to find inspiration for my first tattoo, and so I was like, that's it, because I had gone through transformation and finding myself and like finding my strength. So it was because of that deck that inspired my tattoo. And then next thing you know, I'm like, for some reason, I feel like we're just supposed to look at the deck to find our name. And then next thing you know, we're like, this cookie, and it's like brainstorming.
Right.
Next thing you know, I'm like, Conscious Cookie. And I'm like, and let's find the domain name.
Right.
Conscious Cookie Co. was there, and that just is how it was born.
So cool.
Yeah. So for me, I think people kind of misinterpret the name too, because they think like, oh, it's because of like, what is conscious for you? And I don't think we liked saying that it's because we're spiritual,
Right.
and that it was just a fluke because it was on a deck. But we've been really having to like figure out what conscious means to us, and it not being influenced by people's opinions, and just like really deciding what that is. And so we've actually decided to change the name slightly.
Oh, wow.
in
Is this
our
like
rebrand.
a mic drop moment? Are we like the first ones in media privy to this?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So this will go up in it'll go up in 3 weeks.
Okay.
So,
well,
like,
hopefully we have our new name by then.
Okay, so you don't know what
But
it is yet.
No, we're currently in like brainstorming mode.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about you talking about, like, people ask you what does conscious mean? It reminds me. I don't know if you guys. I'm an 80s baby, so I was born in 82. So I grew up really into like the grunge era, and Nirvana was a big influence musically on me as a young man. And I remember Kurt Cobain, who arguably was an incredible artist. He was asked about the cover of Nevermind, and Nevermind's cover of the album was a baby swimming, submerged in water, going after a dollar bill on a fish hook. And he would always be asked, like, what does it mean? And he never would answer the question, because he always would say, like, it's up to you. It's up to you to decide what it means. And I think it's so cool about, your name now and whatever your name will be is let other people kind of define it for themselves. And because if you try and say this is what it is, it doesn't allow that flexibility, and maybe it won't speak to as many people as it would if you just let the name or the art speak to the people that it wants to speak to. So I think when you try and like niche down too much with something like that, you're really ignoring, you know, potentially a massive part of the population that could engage with your brand.
Right.
Does that resonate with you at all?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. I think it's interesting you say that, because I think ever since we've thought about it more, more people have been asking. Like, since we have questioned the name conscious, everyone goes, what does conscious mean?
Right.
Like, we never used to get that when we first started. When we first started, people go, oh, conscious, I love the name.
Right.
That's it. Let me try.
Yeah.
I love it. Like, let me have one. Now they go up, they go, so now what does conscious mean? And it's challenging us. And that's why we've decided to like go in a different direction. We also didn't, being new business owners, we didn't really have a target market. So now we're going, okay, what's our target market? Let's find a name that works for that kind of thing.
Right.
Because when we decided on the name Conscious Cookie Co., all of a sudden on all of the podcasts I listened to, on all of the like videos I watched, I kept, or like iconic people that I look up to, kept using the word higher consciousness. Oh, tap into your higher self, your consciousness, all that. Like, we started hearing that word much more often.
Do you know why that is?
Why?
I was taught this. It's your reticular activating system.
Oh.
Do you know this?
Yeah, I do. It's
Yeah?
kind of like what did they call it? Like the blue car syndrome, where it's like,
yeah, exactly. But it's the same thing I did it the other day, where I wasn't conscious of it, but I had to go buy kale. And so I walk into the grocery store, and what do I start looking for? Green things, and then green leafy things, and then green leafy things that look like kale. Like, you're more aware of it. So maybe you're just, because of that, you started finding it everywhere. Right. I know that for like when it came to us having a baby, and then like buying the vehicle I wanted to buy, like the blue car thing, you just start seeing it everywhere. So I think it is real. It is real. It's very real.
It's like you start attracting it to you more, right?
Yeah, going back to the whole law of attraction thing.
Yeah,
totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we loved it in the beginning, and we were just all about it, because it was a representation of our journey and how we got to where we were at. Right. So it's like we went on this journey. We had this terrible name for a year in the back of our minds that we wanted to do.
Can we share it, or is it like too embarrassing?
Well, like fine. Let's say 7 years ago, at first it was Happy Belly.
Happy belly, like
Happy
a Buddha?
Belly. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, I was so happy with that just because of it all started because I had stomach issues my whole life. I'm like, oh, Happy Belly. And then we met with this graphic designer. He's like, I don't know if that will work because people are going to think that they're going to get a belly when they eat your cookie. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. And then Emily and I are like, okay, we're so desperate. Like, we need to get moving on this. And then I was like, oh, now this one's really embarrassing.
Oh, there's another one?
It's
oh,
good to
there's
share,
more?
Though. It is good to share, though.
Okay. It was because our last name was like Lee. Or is Lee.
Yeah.
And this is like really painful.
Just tear the Band-Aid off. Just do it.
I was like it was Oolies.
Because it's like,
Oolies.
Because you're like, I'm trying to think of a word or a feeling. Ooh.
And we just did not like it, but we're like, we're just so desperate. And then my friend, Septima, she has a background in marketing and understanding. I go, Septima, we're thinking of this name. She's like, no.
Thank you, Septima.
No, that's not going to work. Can't use that. And I'm like, oh.
Because we had to explain it. Every single time we had to tell people, Oolies. Oh, you know why?
She's like, never choose a name you have to explain. And I'm like,
it's like telling a joke and then having to explain the joke. It's not funny. It's not funny if you have to explain it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
well, it's cool that you can look back at that and laugh, right?
I'm like sweating right now because I'm so embarrassed.
But I think it's good to show like the hiccups along the way.
Yeah.
It's also good to show, and I'm not going to call that a failure because I'm a big believer in you define failures for you, I define failures for me, but it's good. It's like yesterday I sat down with the owner of Nemesis Coffee, and they went through a bunch of failures before Nemesis was a thing, and I think Nemesis is one of the greatest spots in our city and what they're doing. But this is part of the process, and I think a cool thing for us to discuss on this show is like what you're saying, Emily. If anyone's listening and they're thinking about starting an entrepreneurial venture, like, you will trip, you will fall, you will fail, you will try and name your cookie Lee. Right? It will happen, and you will be embarrassed. Like my very my very first podcast is embarrassing, but it's supposed to be. And something I'm a firm believer in, and I don't know who said this, so we'll go with anonymous, but they say, if your first version is perfect, you've waited too long. So it's like, you just need to move. You just need to take that first step. And you sitting there for months and months or years and years trying to get the perfect first name and then go to market. No, it's like, put it out there, see how people react. They don't like it, you laugh at it, whatever, but you need to start somewhere, and it's never going to be perfect. You need to go through, you need to lift those weights to get those muscles. You need to go through that pain to get those results. But I'm glad you didn't go with Uli.
Us too.
So can I ask for we don't have to go into what may be the first name, but does the process now look a little bit more sculpted? Are you bringing people on board, people consulting you now, or are you guys fine with doing this in-house? You got this, or are you bringing in people to advise on, like, if you go with this name, this is what the branding could look like, and this is what how it could resonate with people? Are you bringing in experts, or are you guys, for lack of a better term, like manning this ship?
Like close people that we trust.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But we also put out there on our Instagram, like, anyone that wants to be part of a focus group.
Oh, cool.
So we can ask, like, what are the ingredients that you don't want, or what do you want, or how do you want us to look? Do you like color? Do you like black and white, minimalist or cartoony? Like questions like that.
You guys are doing like a whole marketing. You guys are like a cookie machine. You're a marketing machine. Wow, good for you guys.
So that's what we want to do. Yeah,
Okay.
we're planning on doing that. We just need a little bit more direction. Right? Yeah.
Well, we find our like, we'll be stuck on something, and then something will switch and we'll do the complete opposite. So it really is a process, and like deciding, okay, what works. Oh, wait, we thought this works, but actually that's not really good at all. And then we find inspiration through other products, and so again, another learning curve. It's people, to be honest with you, like what we put on Instagram and social media, and I think that is across the board.
Yes.
Is that you don't see struggle. You don't see.
It's not real. Like, let's be honest.
It's not.
Yeah.
People are like, you're killing it. You're killing it. And then I look at them and
what
I'm
is that?
like,
Yeah.
Yeah, what does killing it mean?
What is killing it? I know someone said to me, like, man, you're crushing it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing well, but I'm not killing it as far as I define it. Like, you don't know about me just staring at my laptop waiting for a client to email me, or do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much. I don't put that on Instagram. Maybe I should, but I don't know who's going to want to look at it. But we hear it all the time. It's the highlight reel. But these conversations, I think, are so important and so valuable to have. Being like, you know what, listeners, if you're open to hearing this, it isn't all just glitz and glam and sexy cookies and people that are looking good in their workout gear. Like, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and years into this. Not just tears, but years. So I applaud you both for doing that and being vulnerable and saying that. And be like, you know what, it's not just what we post on social media. Do you wish that people would take more interest and dig deeper with a business like yours to find out, like, hey girls, like, what does it actually take? And if they did, are you open to sharing that? Or are you like, you know what, it's cool kind of how it is, we like it the way it is, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing? Or if someone tried to engage you and be like, hey, like, what's the real story? Would you guys share that, and how so?
Oh, we're so open to it.
100%.
Yeah.
We actually, we don't want people thinking that it's easy. We're not trying to mask anything. We're not trying to pretend to be people that we're not. Because the reality of it is that we seek out people to share with us their struggles, so then we can understand, like, or find inspiration and motivation through that. Because the reality is that it's not easy. I don't think there's no overnight success. And we all have heard that term or that saying before, right? And people think, okay, because our cookies are $4.99 retail, what we sell to wholesalers, we don't make anything on it. In fact, we are losing money because we're so small that our costs and labor for this cookie exceeds what we're selling at wholesale, which is, people are like, what?
Yeah.
And
Brad's looking at me like, how are you allowing this?
But the truth is, like, we're like, no, we believe in our cookie.
Yep.
We believe in what it's doing for everyone or the world. And, some people like it, some people don't. But we believe in it so much that building our brand or building the cookie and getting it out there is the most important thing. So that's kind of like our first year.
Well, here's the thing is, like, if we were to make money, we'd be using terrible ingredients. And we just, to see a child eat a
Yeah,
cookie that's
no.
not real ingredients, we will not do it. Like, we'll lose that whatever cents per cookie and go into a little bit of debt and just grind a little harder and like make sure our branding's on point and like be at
Good
all
for
the
you guys.
pop-ups
Good
so
for
that
you
we
guys.
can just, that's how we're going to get it back. I think Stephanie and I were talking about currency and like, what's your currency? Like,
Yeah.
currency is energy. Most people think currency is money. So like, if we put out there that we want to have a cookie that's good for people, we just trust the universe is going to bring that currency back in like the form of money so we can live and grow our business so that this can reach more hands. Because that idea of scale, make it big, use the crappiest ingredients so that you can just make money, like, that's not working anymore.
Yeah.
First of all, people are becoming smarter, and I think the universe is not allowing it anymore because you see all of these really big corporations that are getting caught, and like, people don't want to. People want to support local, right?
So from a business standpoint, there's an investor listening to this right now, and he's been super intrigued, and now he's like, not so intrigued. So what is the plan if someone is listening and they have a big fat checkbook and they like what you guys are talking about and they want to give you $250,000, but they're like, okay, how do we make money? So what is can we talk about that? Can we talk about the realities of like what our plan is long term?
Yeah. So we're actually talking to a co-packer right now,
Okay.
which is going to help us. Well, if they're able to scale their own products, so it's a company that bakes other goods as well and uses a similar kind of ingredients as us, we're able to get our ingredients at a lower price. That requires some investment so that we can, meet the minimum, get a huge warehouse or rent warehouse space, which we're already looking at and actually have a connection to. And then if we're able to do that, we can promise Whole Foods, we can promise the big people, we can get you the product. Because right now we're at a commissary baking with ourselves plus 2 of our bakers.
Right.
Like, if Whole Foods calls us tomorrow and goes, every single store is ordering a case.
2 pallets. Or,
even a case, we're like, oh my gosh, this is like, we're in that weird middle space where you have to lose the money to get to that jump.
Right.
And it's like, it's our biggest hurdle right now. But that co-packer is gonna happen.
For those that don't know listening what a co-packer is, can you educate them on how you define co-packer?
Yeah, so co-packing is when you give your recipe, you give your packaging, everything to another manufacturer, and then they bake your cookie and they send it to a warehouse. That warehouse will keep it there, whether it's refrigerated, dry goods, freezer, and then if you sign on with distributors, those distributors will have account managers and people that will sell to stores, or you will work with the store and tell them, hey, this distributor has our cookies in warehouse, order from them, and then that's how we can start to grow, and that's how we can start to get into grocery stores. Because right now we're in Body Energy Club in Vancouver, we're in like local grocery stores here and there, but we're not that big yet. And like Vancouver people, a lot of people like who care about gluten-free or care about protein, they will have seen our product at some point.
Yeah.
But the grocery stores and getting it into like large scale, that's where the money is, because if you're able to scale up, you are paying less per product.
Exactly.
But you're still charging the same amount. So
Yeah, your margins increase.
yeah, exactly.
So what is the top of the mountain for this new business name that we won't know what it is, but we'll just call it Conscious Cookie Co. What is the top of the mountain? When will you guys go, we did it, and then on to the next mountain? Is it getting listings in North America at Whole Foods? Is it being all over the globe? Like, what is it?
That's the dream, to have it everywhere. I mean, when we started the first month, we were just selling to friends on Instagram. I don't know if we mentioned this before.
No.
But, like, this is how we knew that
You
we
guys
had
were
a
like underground
great
OG cookies.
Well, we were in our apartment, and Emily said one day, she's like, Steph, let's just post it on Instagram on our story and see what happens. And she goes, okay, well, we'll do 6 packs, 6 for $25, and see what happens. And I had created 3 different flavors, right? It was at the time, it's like a double chocolate, a regular chocolate chunk, and then a cranberry crunch cookie.
Okay.
And so we posted it. In the first month, we had 100 orders for the 6 packs. It was like we're dealing drugs in the alley. Here's $25 for a box of
e-transfer of cash.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
People would show up at the apartment, and then by the second month, it was 200, and we're like, oh my gosh, we need to get into a commercial kitchen, because now it's not just friends, it's actually like other people DMing us,
Like,
and
this is not comfortable.
This is
selling
not
in our
appropriate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then we're like, okay, we know we have a business, and let's go do this, and it made people happy, and
Good
people
for you
started
guys. That's so cool.
posting. So it became like a trend where people would post the box opening, the
Oh,
boomerang,
yeah.
and everyone wanted to just try it and see what it tasted like, and it was just really fun. And yeah, it was a crazy 2 months. I remember having a breakdown, thinking like, I just can't do this. I can't.
I remember Steph going, we have to just tell people we won't do it this week. And I was like, we can't.
Yeah, you
We put
can't
it
do
out
that.
there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the
was
train has
really
already left
great.
the station. You can't just. It's like McDonald's just not serving burgers anymore. You can't do that.
It was
Well,
exciting.
but it was good. Yeah.
Where has the product? And it's gonna be again more social media, obviously. But where has it popped up? Where you've been like, wow, I can't believe it's there. Like, have you seen it maybe like on a beach in Bali, or like people will take photos like on the top of a hill in Maui with like the ocean in the background and your cookie in their hand? Has there been anything like that to date? Where you go, wow, I can't believe our cookie traveled there or is there, and it's being engaged that way.
Well, a lot of our like friends or like our loyal customers would do that, because our cookie is actually a really good plain snack, because
Okay.
it keeps you full. And if you have any sensitivities, a lot of plain food, it's not the best. So people would usually buy it and be like, oh, I'm taking it on my trip. And so they would take a photo of it and then post it on Instagram, and we would repost it. You know what? The one thing that the day that really stood out for me, and I think this sounds crazy, but it makes sense to me, is that I was going to Equinox one night, and then I found a Conscious cookie wrapper on the bench,
And you were so proud.
and I took a picture of
Yeah.
it, and I was like, holy crap, because at one point this was only feeding people who had come through the apartment 7 years ago.
Right.
Now a person who I don't even know just ate this cookie.
They shouldn't have been littering, but that's a whole other story.
Hey, that's free marketing.
Yeah, true.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
But that was like, whoa, and it hits you. But I don't think Emily and I have time to stop and just like, we appreciate every moment. We don't take any moment for granted, but I think we just keep wanting more.
Yeah.
And that we want more, we want to do more, we want to start other things. So it's not just where the cookie is the beginning. The other things that we wish to do, it's kind of an extension of cookie just helped us.
It's your like
create
springboard.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
there's a lot of
I
other
always
things.
say that the cookie was a good place to start because people will trust you when it comes to food,
Uh-huh.
right? Like if I can,
If you can deliver, yeah.
Yeah, if you can deliver something that tastes good and it's true to what you say and the ingredients are good and they can actually trust you, then it's like, oh, okay, they're selling this now or they're offering this service now. It's like, oh, they come from an authentic place.
Right.
Because their cookie was authentic.
You've built that trust.
Yeah, I think that's,
And
it
there's-
was the hardest. Everyone goes, why would you start with food? Like out of your first business to go
Right.
into,
And
why
it's
would you
super
start with
perishable
food?
because we don't put any
Yeah.
additives or
No.
But
preservatives.
food is that one common denominator, right? Biologically, we do all need to eat,
Yeah.
and when you make something that is, so appropriate for certain allergies or food preferences, I'm assuming literally everyone could eat that cookie. Is that fair
Well,
to say?
there are people who can't have oats and
Oh, right.
yeah,
So there is a
chocolate.
small population
Yeah.
that can't,
Yeah.
but it really is, it can appeal to the masses. But yeah, I think food is that one common denominator. Quick story. Yesterday, I went with my wife for ramen, and sitting at a table like this in this ramen restaurant, I watched a gentleman who was just finishing up and a lady who just came and sat down. She was just starting her lunch, and they just started talking. They didn't know each other, but that existed because of food. And like, don't be ignorant to the power of food. So you had people that were asking you like, why would you make food your first business? It seems like it was a natural fit for your sister.
Yeah.
She had kind of created this product, so why not give it a shot? And like I said, there's a biological need. We all need to eat. So I think food's such a great business, especially if you do it right. And there's a lot of people that say like the food industry and restaurants is like the worst industry and it's so challenging and businesses fail all the time. that's true, but there's businesses failing all over the world in different industries. It's just this one's so there in everyone's face, they can see it. But if you do something really, really well and you work your ass off, guess what? You'll get rewarded.
I think it's the most value that you can bring into people's lives, because everybody eats,
Yeah,
and everyone
totally.
needs to eat good food.
Yeah.
Like good food that tastes good, so that it's good for your soul.
Yeah.
And then good food that is good for your body, so that it's good physically for you. It's like the best currency, the best offering you can give to somebody is food.
We should definitely chat some more, either on the record or off the record, because one of my goals, if I can share quickly, and the reason I have a podcast, and the reason I am a consultant, and the reason I have charity dinners is I want to put good food in the mouths of everyone in the world. That's my goal. So when I make millions of dollars, it's not necessarily to buy a big house. I don't really care about a big house. I will buy a nice car, and I will take my daughter to Italy. I'll do those things. But my real goal is to take food like yours, if I can, and take it to Kenya and take it to the impoverished parts of the world and say, this is what you should be eating and can be eating, and make it accessible to people. So I would love to, when my business starts to traject a little bit more, I would love to engage with you guys and say, like, hey, let's take this all over the world. Let's just give it to people. It'd be so cool. That's what's near and dear to my heart. That's why I do what I do.
I got chills.
Oh, thank you. It's sincere. Like, and so I've been doing it now throughout the city. I've been doing pop-up dinners with a group of volunteers and a group of chefs and local farmers, and we've been donating all the profits to local food-based charities. And that for me is just like, shame on me if I don't do that, because I'm building this social capital. I'm meeting amazing people who are doing amazing things, who have amazing products or have passion and desire and creativity. Why can't we all just come together and do something for the betterment of our community, whether it be locally or globally? So sincerely, I would love to talk to you guys more about like what that could look like at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have to ask this question, and it's one I don't like to repeat, but I want to ask you both because I feel like you both articulate so well. I usually ask it to chefs, and I ask them when they cook a dish and they send it out into the floor of the restaurant and it's placed in front of the guest, and the guest engages with it and they look at it and they smell it and then they take their first bite, and the chef usually nowadays can see the floor, and the floor can see the kitchen. I always am intrigued by what he or she viscerally feels when they're watching that guest engage with their food and enjoy that food. So for you guys, when you saw the wrapper outside of the gym, or when you see someone posting online, or you catch someone eating your cookie, what is happening like in the marrow of your bones? Like, what are you feeling when this thing that two sisters came together to create that really is helping people and it's better food, what are you feeling when that happens? Like, what emotions do you get?
Well, to be really truthful, I feel anxiety when I see them. Like every time, never fails. Like we do demos, they pick it up, and it, like, my heart stops every single time.
What are you thinking? Like it, please like it, please like it?
Yeah, but then again, it's learning. And interesting enough, I think it's also a lesson for me of self-worth, that I know I created something that I enjoy, but not everyone's going to like it, and I have to accept that. But when someone picks it up and eats it, and you know that you put in that time, you put in that love, and someone's enjoying it, and this is the reason why I wanted to go to culinary school in the first place. And the same thing with the cookie is that, you know, I would make, every Sunday night I would make, or I'd start at 9 a.m. and make a 3-course meal for my family growing up. Wow. And I wouldn't finish till like 7 p.m. And I would put it in front of my dad, and I'd literally, with my elbows on the table, like so close to his face, I'd watch him, and I'm like, do you like it? And that's kind of the exact same thing that happens when people eat the cookie, because it's a piece of you, right?
Yeah, oh, totally.
And it's your energy, your time, your love, and everything. So, but when it's that moment when someone goes, oh my gosh, this is so good, all that time, all that energy, all that work, everything is so, it's worth it. Yeah. Because you made a difference. It brings joy to people, and people think it's crazy. Like you spend so much time in the kitchen just for that one moment. Don't know how to explain it, but for people who do love cooking, that time doesn't matter. Right. Because it's also the process of it. And yeah. And I mean, I think like till I'm 80. Like someone eats something like our cookie, I'll still feel the exact same feeling, anxiety, and then relief.
Right.
Or if someone doesn't like it, I'll be like, you know what? That's okay.
Totally.
That's just what
Yeah.
they like. They don't like,
Exactly.
and yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge learning curve that we've gone through when people don't like it. And we've had to just ego aside,
Yeah.
And acknowledge it. Go, that didn't feel good.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't like something, that was awful. But you know what? Like having trust that it's good, or that it's helping people. Or I think one of the moments that felt really good was when we were at UBC. Mm-hmm. And for some reason with me, kids is something that really stands out to me. When kids are able to eat it, it makes me so happy. And Steph actually, so 2 stories actually. So there's someone that Steph used to work with, and her kid would go to school, and he couldn't eat the treats when the treats came out for all the kids.
Brutal.
And I started crying when she told me that story. Like, that is the most heartbreaking thing.
Can you imagine that kid just standing there? Just terrible.
I can't. It hurts me to think about it. But then when she found out about her cookies, that they were allergen free, she would buy them, cut them up, and then give them to the teachers so that her son could have that treat at the same time.
So cool.
And truly, it's like, when you ask that question of what do you feel in your bones, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like this overwhelming feeling of happiness to the point of where you could cry.
Right.
It's like, you know that what you're doing is valuable. You know that what you're doing is bringing something into the world that can make someone happy, and there's nothing better than that. And it's like a surreal feeling where you kind of like lift a little bit.
Yeah.
Where your body gets kind of like warm,
You get
and
that,
you
like,
start
warm fuzzy.
Yeah, warm fuzzy feeling. And then I think it's also like vibrationally we get a little bit more of a kick, and then it's that little bit of energy that gives you the motivation to wake up the next day and do it again.
Yeah, answer those crappy emails and do the bookkeeping and do all that stuff that you don't want to do. It isn't fun, but you know that in the next week or 2 you're going to have that experience again. But not putting pressure on it as well to be something. I think that's the big thing too, is not forcing it and just kind of letting it be, like talking about like letting people interpret what Conscious Cookie Co. means and not trying to, dictate to people. You know what's so funny is as you guys are talking, I just keep thinking, I don't know what your marketing plan is if you have one, but I'd say like find a way to tell your story to more people, because it resonates with me a lot, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of the listeners. And it's more than a cookie. And that's what I'm understanding now. Obviously, Emily, you and I have chatted a bit before this podcast, but we don't really know each other. And Stephanie, you and I have just met. We sat down now for 57 minutes and 5 seconds. And I'm already super motivated to figure out, like, how can I help you guys? Because it to me, what you're saying, it is more than a cookie. And your story about the little boy, like, that shouldn't be a reality, right?
Yeah.
And if this cookie can be that bridge for that, like, man, what do we need to do? Like, do we need to get people, if you're listening and you have $250,000 laying around and you want to invest in these girls and this product, like, hit them up, slide into their DMs and find a way. But I'm gonna, but I'm gonna do my best to sincerely like support you guys any way I possibly can. I think it's really, really cool. So I applaud you, because I think on the surface, it can look and feel like, oh, it's just a cookie post workout, like get your abs, get your butt, but it's way more than that, right?
Yeah.
And just another thing is that like people look at our cookie, and for fitness people, they always look at the macros. That's a big thing. Look at the macros, and they're like, oh, there's sugar in there, and they put it down, and then I get the ego comes in, right? But then I stop to think about it, and Emily and I are like, you know what? It's real food, and we're allowed to have a little bit of sugar, but they know like we use organic raw cane sugar, and we've actually taken the hit financially, so we can actually put a sugar that is better for you, and we're okay with that because we're proud to put out a good product. So when people like come up to us and be like, oh, the sugar, it's like, but you're not putting a substance that nature didn't make. You're putting something that is honest, and I think that's how we have to stand by it, because we're so
totally
influenced by other people's opinions, and we get offended by them, or like our feelings are hurt. But I'm like, you know what? I'd eat this and I'd give it to my kid and I'd give it to your kid and be proud to. And like, we're all allowed treats, you know, but at least the treat that we're giving you, you can feel good about it, you
Exactly.
know?
Who else right now is doing something similar to this? Is there anyone else in the market that you guys are like, wow, it's, and whether you look at them as competitors, whether you look at them as like, man, they're awesome, we need to up our game, we need to like work together as a segment of this industry to lift each other up. Is there anyone else who you think has either kind of been a bushwhacker and kind of opened up this market, or are you guys in your minds doing something totally different?
In terms of protein cookie meets allergen free, we're actually the only cookie
Amazing.
out there, I think. Right.
There's some that like hit like soy free and, you know, dairy free.
Yeah.
But I think our cookie, I believe so much in our cookie because it tastes good. So like there will be other cookies out there that may hit those marks, but they're dry. There's you know, what is synthetic preservatives but our cookie's like a cookie that your mom would make, but it's all those,
Right.
you know.
It ticks all those boxes.
Yeah.
I actually feel like there's some products out there that started off how we did, but then ended up caving to the like, okay, well, we have to be on the shelf for a year. Let's just throw some glycerin in there, you know? And it's like, oh, it's that feeling of I don't want to put that out there. So I think that's something that we will always stay true to. And
Is that a hill that you guys are willing to die on? Meaning, like if if Whole Foods comes to you and they say, look, we'll back you and we're going to order a pallet a week for the next 3 years, but you've got to put some synthetic stuff in it for us.
I'll say put it in the freezer.
Don't
put it in. Yeah. I will literally
And that's
not.
what we do. Like that.
Yeah.
Right now we put vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid. So it's vitamin C, and that actually helps. Basically what it does, it increases the pH level so that it doesn't grow mold.
Oh, okay.
But it's not something
Or
that will
slower to grow mold.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it will. Actually,
Yeah.
one of my friends, she had it like a piece left on her counter, and she left it there for maybe 2 weeks or something. She forgot about it, and she picked it up. She goes, "Oh, it grows mold. Oh, this is real."
Yeah.
Like it's a good. Like it's in a package. It's bought at a store. You know, you'd think, oh, it's gonna
last
last forever.
Like the Twinkie you see on the media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's like a good indication. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is real food.
There's,
like I could
there's
have
living
made this.
there's living things in there. Yeah, which you want. You want. This show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, and I do ask every single guest that I've had on this podcast 2 of the same questions. So I'm going to put you 2 on the spot right now.
Okay.
You're both very intellectual and well-spoken, so you'll be able to do it. And because there's 2 of you, you can share the workload. So the 2 questions are this. The first one is the half a dozen have-tos. Stay with me here. I need from both of you, so 3 each, so equaling 6. I need from both of you 3 things that you have done in your life, food-related, business-related or not, that you feel like our listeners have to do. A book you've read, a trip you've taken, a meditation that you do, something that you've done in your life up until now that you feel like our listeners have to do. Who wants to start?
Do you have one?
I have one.
Go for it.
Learn to love yourself.
Yeah, and how do you do that?
See, a lot of people struggle with that. For me, it was knowing that I'm worthy. I'm worthy of success. I'm worthy of love. And that basically, that was just focusing on the things that make me me and don't apologize for it, not care what other people think, and just do what makes your heart happy and what sets your soul on fire. And everything else kind of falls into place once you are able to achieve that. And I'm still a work in progress, but I also teach. I'm a teacher too, so I've taught my students that, and I've watched transformation happen, and I know that their lives are better for it. So that is a huge thing for me, is just love yourself. And we all wonder what that is. It's just constantly being open to growth and knowing who you are, like asking who you are without any outside influences. What is that? Who am I? And don't apologize for it.
Right.
Like, you know, my kids, you know, what's cool, what's not. Like, what, you know, they always question it, but it's like, you know what, who are you? If you didn't have to like explain yourself to anyone, who is that? And just be true to that person. And that for me is just one of the biggest things.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Love yourself.
Emily?
And mine, it's funny because it kind of ties in with Steph's. Is the first thing that popped in my head was self-worth, which is similar to self-love. But when it comes to self-worth in me, and when I was younger, I didn't have a voice. And I'm going to get emotional talking about this because everybody has a voice, and what you have to say matters. Because when I was younger, I was the youngest in my family. I would speak up at the dinner table, and I would just get like talked over simply because my voice is just probably quieter than everyone else's.
Right.
But it was this programming in my head that was like, what you say doesn't matter because no one wants to listen. And I know my mom would always stop and go, what were you going to say? And I would say, it's fine. It's over now. Like the moment's done. But like your moment's never done. Like what you have to say will always matter because it came into your mind. It was something that you felt was worthy of speaking out. Whatever's in your mind, whatever's going through your heart is worth speaking up. Totally. And it's something I'm still working on in learning to find my voice. And I think that's why my path then led me to becoming a fitness instructor. So I could stand in front of a group. And the thing is with my spin classes is like, I'm not just telling people to like climb hills and add resistance. It's like, there's always that one song or those moments in the class where you tap into something deeper and you tap into something that's more raw, that comes from this place of motivation. Like whatever it is outside this room, if you're able to push it in this room, you can push it outside this room.
100%. Yeah.
Right. So that's how I started to find my voice. And I think people, if they look at me like on the podium or speaking or whatever, they're like, oh my gosh, this girl's like had a voice her whole life. But it's like, that's something I've struggled with so much simply because I didn't think what I had to say was worthy. So I found this platform where I was like, no one else can speak over me. I'm on a microphone and I'm blaring the volume. Yeah. So like, that's something like speak up. If you have something to say, you need to speak up because whatever you have to say is worth listening to. And that's something that I'm going through right now.
Amazing. That's an awesome share. Stephanie, back to you.
The other one is don't be afraid to feel. Don't be afraid to just honor your feelings in that moment because we have highs, we have lows. And for me, when you're feeling low, it's not weakness. It's honoring who you are and what you're going through. And the moment you can acknowledge that emotion and that low, you're able to identify what that is and heal from it. And then you become stronger for it. And I think a lot of us tend to, when we're in our lows, we try to be like, no, I got to think positive. And then you just kind of sweep it under the rug, but it still exists. So like right now, before we started this podcast, I'm like, I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling, I understand where I'm at, my energy, and I'm accepting it and being kind to myself for it. And I'm just like, that's okay. And we don't have to be positive all the time, but it doesn't mean we live in negativity. It just means that we try to understand it so we can come out of it.
Exactly.
That's another big thing.
Well, you've done a great job for someone that started off anxious. You've spoken really well.
Thank you.
Emily, back to you.
Boundaries is something that
Ooh, yeah, definitely.
Like, that's a big one that I've discovered in this last year, that boundaries. Okay. So I always used to mix up expectations with boundaries. I used to go, okay, this doesn't feel good to me. I'm not feeling aligned with whatever this was said, whatever I've done, whatever someone's done to me. And you think, okay, was that expectations? And should I just like shake it off and like get over it and move forward because it's my expectations that's causing me to feel not aligned? And in this last year, I've realized that those are boundaries that you need to have. So if something doesn't feel good to you or doesn't feel aligned, honor it, understand it, ask yourself why, and say, okay, why am I putting myself in the same feeling time and time again? Because it's like there's those moments where you're pushing yourself, or like universe is telling you, okay, step into your zone of,
zone feeling of genius or whatever.
Yeah. Like there's that moment, but then there's also, okay, someone did something to me that doesn't feel good, or someone's saying something to me or breaking me down or something like that. And you think, that's my expectations. I would never say that to somebody. but they're allowed to say it to me. It
Right.
makes me feel like crap, but that's okay. You know, no, it's boundaries and being okay with, you know, saying goodbye to things or people that doesn't feel good anymore, that you maybe used to feel good. Those are huge signs that you need to shift your energy or shift or flow somewhere different.
Yeah.
And that's something that's big. Like setting up boundaries, releasing the word expectation out of your mind, because expectation leads to shame. Whereas boundaries just leads to like self-love.
Yeah. I don't allow
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Totally. I love that one. Last one, Steph.
It's don't be afraid of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Because that stopped me from doing this cookie thing for years. And now that I've launched it with Emily, there's so many doors that have opened for me that I never could have imagined it. And I know that, let's say hypothetically, this cookie thing, like so-called fails, it was never a failure, because I
Right.
wouldn't be here
Yeah.
with you right
Totally.
now. Emily wouldn't be here with you right now. We wouldn't have met, you know, half of the people we've met and connected with, and now we have relationships with. So there's what I've learned is, where I've always been in that mindset of fear of failure, that there's no such thing as failure. There's always growth. And you can't, and there's a quote that I just recently put on my wall, and it's not exactly word for word, but we always think about what we're going to lose, but we don't think about all the things that we're going to gain. And a lot of us tend to focus on the things that we'll lose if something fails, but we don't think about all the doors that open that we can't even, our minds can't even imagine. And yeah, this cookie, no matter what, it's been a success.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing what a cookie can give you? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I feel that way about this podcast. It's given me way more than I've ever given it. It's just, this is an inanimate object. It doesn't have any emotion or feeling or heartbeat, but man, oh man, like the people that I've met, the conversations that I've had, it's just, it's given me so much. So it sounds like, not to kind of put words in your mouth, Stephanie, but it sounds like it's done that for you as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I'm more confident now.
It's been like that cookie is your therapist.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
100%. It's a tangible form of.
Yeah. That's so cool. Emily, last one.
It's probably not caring about what people think.
Okay. How does that show up for you?
Well, I'm going to come back to spin, because that's really where like the catalyst to everything started for me. I had my audition. I'd worked 3 months training for it, which is not normal, but I was one of the first to like get trained in-house. And I had somebody tell me that the owner was like, I don't know if Em's got it, because I was just in that like anxious bubble where I couldn't show my personality on a mic because of that self-worth piece. And then I remember waking up that morning, I felt so upset. I was already ready to fail. Like, I was so fearful. I was just like setting up my destiny before it even happened, because I was just so scared. And then I thought, who cares? I've put 3 months into this. I'm finally going to have a room full of people to listen to me. Who cares if they don't want me? They don't want me? Whatever. Like, what am I going to lose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I'm just going to go have fun and literally not care what they think. Went up there. I didn't care. I made some mistakes. You know, it probably didn't do the best, but it was that moment of breaking through that shell of like, people, I don't care what people think. I'm just going to show what I've got and what I've worked so hard for. Because it's like, you work so hard for that moment. When that moment comes, fear's going to pop up. Are you going to give into that fear, or are you going to push through and just like do that moment and shine for you? So that's what I did. I was like in my own bubble, but this time it was my own bubble of like happiness, of like, you earned this. And then I got the job. So I was happy about it. And then that led to the fitness industry, which led to the cookie, and then led to everything that's going to come. So had I not said, I don't care if the owner doesn't think in this moment that I've got it, I'm going to prove to him today and just not care. And then if he doesn't like it.
But it sounds like you weren't even thinking that. You're kind of proving it to yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the coolest thing. That to me is what is, I say the word sexy a lot. I don't mean sexy in like the traditional like sexual way. I mean sexy as in like attractive. I mean, people want to be around that. I always talk about, like, I'm really into hip hop and music, and like the artist that gets up on the stage and is just in his or her zone, that's sexy. Like, they're just being themselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the realest they can be, and people want to be around that. When a chef cooks a meal from his or her